Welcome to Pivot with Greta Scholes, a conversation with business executives on changes in their business and what they've done when those things happen. To Gary Lesser, who is a very, very well-known PI attorney in South Florida. I want Gary to talk a little bit about his firm, how it started, the growth of the firm. We'll go through some questions, and I think you guys will find it very interesting. So Gary, tell us a little bit about how your firm started, a little bit about the background. Talk about that a little bit.
My grandfather, Joe Lesser, came to Palm Beach County in 1926 to invest in real estate. And he told the story that the first boom turned into the first real estate bust the moment his feet left the train and hit the ground. And, he'd been a lawyer in Rome, Georgia, and he liked West Palm Beach. He didn't want to go back to Rome, Georgia. And so he started our law firm as a solo practitioner, just borrowing one extra office of a small law firm and really representing anyone who needed legal help. So he did a lot of legal work for free, a lot of reduced rates. There are many stories of him being paid in agriculture by local farmers. And he loved being a lawyer and helping people and being involved in the community. And he really sort of established all of the foundational values for the family and for the firm. My dad would join in 1960 and worked until, unfortunately, his passing a couple of years ago. And I joined the firm 30 years ago. When I joined the firm with my dad, well, it turns out he was almost kind of semi-retired and we had a part-time receptionist. And in the 30 years between now and then, we've grown from new lawyer Gary, semi-retired dad and part-time receptionist, to 10 lawyers and 37 employees in 3 full-time offices.
Wow. So obviously you were really the head of that, I guess, and your dad. So what prompted you to grow it the way that you did? I mean, your grandfather, your father, they did very well the way they were. I mean, you've really made an impact in the local community on how you've grown the firm and the reputation of the firm. What prompted you to do that, and how did you do it? I mean, there's a lot of other firms out there.
Well, my grandfather was a general practitioner, and whoever came in the door needed help, he would help. And
right.
It became harder to do as the decades went by. My dad was more of a transactional general practitioner. So he did corporate and wills and trusts and real estate. But I liked litigation, and I worked for a law firm in law school, and a lawyer named Todd Aronovitz, who would go on to become president of the Florida Bar 20 years ago, but after I worked with him. And he did personal injury only. He did only on referral. And I really liked how he ran his law firm and how he worked with his people and how he treated his clients. And I thought, I'd like to kind of do personal injury law that way. And so Todd was a very important part of my story. 30 years later, he and I have co-counseled and tried cases together and are very close friends. My mentor, really, 30 years later. When I was sworn in as president of the Florida Bar a few months ago, he actually introduced me, which was very nice.
Wow, that's an honor. That's a real honor. So when you say you wanted to kind of emulate, you wanted to grow the way he did, what are some of those characteristics that you knew you wanted to emulate, what you want to do? What are those important things in growing your firm and building the reputation that you have? Because frankly, being a personal injury law firm, they're not always the best reputation firms in town, but yours is. So what are some of the things that you did to be different, to really grow this firm in the right way and build the respect that it has?
Well, lawyers couldn't even advertise at all in the United States of America until the 1970s, when the United States Supreme Court said, well, it's still free speech. It's commercial speech. It has to be reasonably regulated. And it's been kind of a gradual downhill slide ever since. And by the way, big fan of the First Amendment, so I'm not knocking that. It's just as the decades have gone by, there's been a push and a push as to what's permissible. I don't like lawyer advertising in today's style, which promises easy, big money, which isn't reality.
No.
The reality is, in order to get the results on the cases, to get the best results, you have to grind it out as a lawyer. You have to work really, really hard. You have to have the reputation with the other side. You need to have the line of communication with your clients. A lot of the bigger firms that advertise the paralegals do a lot of the work and the lawyers oversee that. And
Yes.
I just don't believe in that, Greta. I mean, it's a business choice and people can do whatever they want, but I really like being a lawyer and I like talking to my clients. And there are two things I need to do. I need to win, right? I need to do as well as I can. But equally important, I have to be there to help guide the client through the process, explain what's happening, what will happen. And I really like that client communication, and it's a big part of what we do.
So you've made that decision not to, do the typical lawyer advertising on television, which I really admire. One of the things that I admire about you and about your firm. So how do you grow your business? I mean, how do you decide, look, guys, we still have a business to run. We still have to grow it. What do you really do? What do you commit to? What do you have your attorneys doing to really help that happen?
Well, there's a couple of key ways that we've built the firm to where we're at. We're now getting referrals locally. We're getting referrals across the state. And now in my current role as bar president, which I know we'll discuss in a bit, we're getting referrals from lawyers in other states. But that really was the result of just working hard and getting the results on the case. All of a sudden, you're a young lawyer and you get a really big result. You build your reputation. So there's two aspects to it. There's the reputation that you build based on the results that you get and how you treat people. And the other way that you build a firm or any business for that matter is relationships, right? I've never been a mercenary. If there were things that I wanted to do to most easily, grow my business as a personal injury firm, well, yeah, we probably would advertise and then hire paralegals to sort the cases that come in, but we didn't want to do that. We took a very relationship-driven approach. To this day, the majority of our cases are referred to us by current and former clients who knew that we worked hard and got good results and treated them with respect. And we get a lot of referrals from people in the community and across the state, relationships that we've built over time, either through community involvement or other things. And, I spoke last week at the swearing in of new lawyers at the 4th District Court of Appeals. And I used a line that I've used many times. You have your entire career, right, to build your reputation, and one bad decision to give it away. So I feel very lucky that after 30 plus years as a lawyer, I've built some pretty good relationships with some good folks. It's also what I can do for other people, not what can they do for me.
Right.
And then the results that we've been getting, all over Florida, I think that's also helped.
So you talked about community involvement and community relationships and building relationships and getting referrals. Well, they don't come for no reason. They do come from being involved in the community. They come from trust. They coming from people over years and years of getting to know you, trusting and believing in you. So talk about not just your community involvement, because I know that's extensive, but how do you hire, whether they're younger or just newer to your firm, attorneys, and really get them to have that same giving, way that you have in the community? I mean, what do you really look for in those attorneys, and what are some of the goals that you set for them to start growing their own businesses?
Well, that's really the heart of the matter, Greta. I learned after you learn how to hire the right people after you've hired the not right people.
Yes.
And I realized that what I was really looking for was people who shared my values, my work ethic, and the overall approach to what we owe to other people in this community and on this earth. And I decided to make a commitment to community involvement a key screening criteria. And everyone who I hire, if they're a brand new lawyer or a 20-year lateral, I tell them, listen, you need to be involved in the community. And don't get involved in a cause that you think in a mercenary way will help you get business.
Right.
Get involved in a cause that's meaningful to you, that is important to you. Maybe you have a specific cause, like the JCC, or maybe there's an interest of food insecurity. And get involved there, and the firm will support you. And the reason, Greta, why I take that approach is, well, number one, and first and foremost, we want to make an impact. We want to help in those given areas. But what I've learned over time is if you go and get involved where it's meaningful for you, you find your people. These become your friends and people that you work with for a very long time. And that's worked out very, very well for the people here at our firm, being able to make an impact and form some meaningful relationships. And in the long term, those are people who know you and who trust you and who will refer you work. That's secondary, but it definitely happens and it's definitely real.
Imagine it also makes it more enjoyable to do business that way. I mean, really, when you're helping others and you're giving to others and people really know that and they feel it, you're helping in the community, that's huge. And I think you made a very good point, which is if you're going to hire an attorney, get involved in what you believe in. Don't just get involved in something that, well, all the, I don't know, movers and shakers in this community are in this particular organization, so that's what to join. That may be an offset of it, but if you're doing something that you have passionate about, it's going to come through. And I've always heard that from you, and I think that's extremely powerful.
I learned there was an additional benefit that I didn't really know about at first, but it's really part of the screening, part of the values. Listen, if people don't want to get involved in the community, that's up to them. If they just want to put their toe in the water, that's also okay. The 3 W's, work, wealth, and wisdom.
Yeah.
But I found that people who have come on board at our law firm and who are very involved in community, who feel for other people, end up having empathy for our clients, which make them better lawyers. They end up being, team players. And all of our cases, frankly, are handled on a team basis. I'd say 90+% of our cases have, 2 lawyers looking at the case at any given time. And so when you get a team player who cares about the client, that's a win. That's the type of person that I want to work with.
Yeah.
My firm to help our clients.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about this road, as I would call it, to being the Florida Bar Association president. There are thousands and thousands of lawyers in the state of Florida. Talk about how that all came about. That's a road that most people don't know or understand, especially non-lawyers. And that's a really, really big responsibility, position, job. Talk about that.
I'll tell you a little bit about the organization just for a second and then how I got there.
Okay,
The
good.
Florida Bar was created by the Florida Supreme Court in 1950. To do the heavy lifting, the court is 7 justices and staff, and they created the Florida Bar to do the work on lawyer discipline, lawyer regulation, ethics and professionalism, court rules. And it's really a great honor to work for and with the court. Now, we're also a membership organization. So we have newsletters and member benefits. It's what's called a unified or mandatory bar. Now, my path to getting involved was 24 years ago. I've been very involved in my local bar, the Palm Beach County Bar, and I had chaired the medical legal committee, and I had chaired the professionalism committee for a few years. And my former boss and mentor and dear friend, Todd Aronovitz, said, Gary, you should apply for a Florida Bar committee. And I said, I don't know about any of that, Todd. I'm a Palm Beach County guy. I don't know about Florida Bar involvement. He said, no, you really like serving the profession and you like helping people, so you will apply. So I said, okay.
You will.
And, I applied and got appointed to the Professional Ethics Committee, which gives answers to lawyers who ask questions about prospective conduct. Is it ethical for me to do X or Y? Is it ethical for me to work with a settlement advance company? We have these interesting issues that come up all the time. I served on that committee for 6 years and chaired it. And then I went on the advertising committee back when we were able to put up a bigger fight for 6 years and chaired that committee. And then Todd Aronovitz said, why don't you run for the Board of Governors? The Board of Governors is the governing body for the Florida Bar. And it's from lawyers from all over Florida. Each circuit elects a certain number of lawyers based on how many lawyers live in that area. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. I had a 3-way election against 2 really good lawyer leaders. And I just wanted to make the runoff, And I ended up winning with like 58%. And even then, but I didn't think about being bar president. I thought I'd serve, maybe 4 years. Each term is 2 years. And then I'd kind of move on. And I had this idea about a mentorship program for newer lawyers. And I spoke to the then president of the Florida Bar about my idea. These, newer lawyers who graduate law school without a job and they're on their own. And we should have a mentorship program. We should be helping them. And he looked at me and said, well, Gary, that's a pretty good idea, but I'm not doing that. If you want to do that, go be president of the Florida Bar yourself. And I thought, well, maybe I will.
Maybe I just will.
and then when you get to that level of interest, and there's a lot of people on the Board of Governors who think about being bar president, but then you sort of aggregate with your people. And a friend of mine and I encouraged one of our other friends to run for bar president. His name was Bill Shafino. He was bar president 5 years ago from Tampa. Great lawyer, great friend, great leader. And then, of course, as years went by, he came back to me and encouraged me to run. And that was 3+ years ago, statewide race. and you have to campaign to lawyers and lawyer groups. And I ran against a big firm lawyer in Miami, and I learned a lot in this process. I learned I'm never going to run for anything ever again. And because even it's not partisan, political things happen.
Of course they do.
There were a few things that were disappointing. All in all, the experience was amazing. I talked to a lot of people about the legal profession and what the Florida bar does and why the rule of law is important, and ended up getting 63% of the vote, which was very unexpected.
Wow.
And so now I've been Florida bar president for a few months, and it's definitely been pretty busy.
So what are you seeing? I know it's only been a few months and there's lots of time going to be ahead of you. What do you see so far as your biggest goal that you want to make sure you achieve before you are no longer in the seat? And what do you see as some of the challenges that you maybe didn't expect that come across? I mean, it's very interesting. I'm sure when you look at it from a board perspective, when you're sitting in that seat, it's got to be different. So what are some of those things?
It's definitely different perspective running that meeting. The first time I ran my first meeting, it was really almost a little surreal. We have, 48 electeds and 5 or 6 appointeds and guests, and I'm sitting at the head of this big hollow square of tables with chairs around. But I was very lucky that you actually run for president-elect, and then you serve for a year as president-elect. And my president was a lawyer named Mike Tanner from Jacksonville area, and a good friend. And he had me at the table all year, and sought my input, and that really helped with my learning curve. There have been people who become president who didn't have that experience, and they're taking the oath, and they have no idea what's going on. So as much as you can be, when I raised my right hand, I was kind of ready to go. And there's really 2 big issues that we're focused on this year. Number one is a mentoring program, and we are in the process of creating a mentoring program for lawyers at firms of 3 and fewer lawyers with 3 or less years experience. As a practical matter, a lot of people are graduating law school without a job and throwing up their own shingle, which is fine, or going to work with a friend of theirs, but they're kind of on their own. Yeah. There's no one giving them, guidance or mentorship that we kind of took for granted, 20, even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we as a legal profession owe it to these newer lawyers to help them succeed. So they're building out this mentorship program, and we'll be launching it next year. There's 2 states that have a mandatory mentorship program for new lawyers, and there's a number of states that have an optional. You don't have to participate. And we have a special committee that's been studying what other states are doing and what other local organizations are doing, and it's going to be really exceptional. I've been going all over the state of Florida saying we're going to have the best mentoring program in the country, because I really think we will.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt that if you set your mind out to do that, you will do that.
There's 2 great co-chairs, Zach Zierust from Clearwater and Catherine Hurst Miller from Daytona Beach, who are voluntary bar presidents, who are presidents of the Young Leadership, the Young Lawyers Division, and just really exceptional. And you'll see more about that. The other issue, Greta, is a really big lift. And it's not a Florida issue, it's a national issue. And it's not a new issue, it's a decades-long challenge. Access to legal services. When my grandfather was a lawyer, when my dad was a lawyer, even 15 or 20 years ago, people hired lawyers. And they're not doing that anymore. The data is just overwhelming. Up to 80% of those who classify themselves as low income don't hire a lawyer because they think they can't afford one. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. They made the decision they can't. Even the middle class, the upper middle class, that number becomes 60%, depending on the area of the law in question. People are going without wills or doing it on their own. People are buying and selling homes. The biggest transaction of their life without a lawyer. No one is reviewing the contract. No one is reviewing the closing statement. So these buyers or sellers are losing thousands and thousands of dollars in untold liabilities if there's a problem with the house or the property. So we are launching something called Life's Legal Moments. And that'll be launched next month. It's a public education program aimed at the public about the benefits of going with a lawyer versus the harm of going without in certain situations in life, like buying or selling a home, like having a will or a trust. You don't always need a lawyer, but oftentimes you do.
Yes.
The number of people who aren't hiring a lawyer, I'm forgetting the exact data point, but last year in Florida, there were several 100,000 real estate transactions where one or both parties didn't have a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I know people who bought and sold property without a lawyer. People that you think would know better. And I'd say, what do you mean you have a lawyer look at it? Oh, it's okay. The title agent was there. No, the title agent is there so the transaction happens, so they get their commission. There's no one looking out for people in their best interests in these transactions. So educating the public through op-ed articles, social media, banner ads, a landing page. We're going to have a full-blown public education program that will start launching next month. We're not going to solve the problem like that, but the goal is to move the needle a bit, and I'm confident that we will.
I love that. I love the idea of that. And I was going to ask you, how are you going to put forth, some of that information so people can find out about it? You're right. Social media is the way to go. Probably some local attorneys within the entire state to talk to some of those organizations that maybe would be more uncomfortable with hiring an attorney, maybe going and speaking to them as a group also, which I'm sure is a plan. That's also, an excellent idea. I love that.
A new aspect of that we just started working on is, as you know, I'm a big Chamber of Commerce person. I love being involved with the Chamber of Commerce. It's small businesses meeting with other small businesses.
Yes.
But there's a lot of small businesses that don't hire lawyers either.
Yes.
So we're going to build out a component to really focus on small businesses. People sign leases, contracts, agreements that involve thousands and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, the very fate and future of their small business. And they don't have a lawyer looking over their shoulder to make sure they're protected. So that's going to be an additional communications approach that we're going to be taking.
I love that. So let's back up a little bit to the mentorship program. I think that's absolutely huge. I think in any industry, when somebody comes out of school, yes, they passed the bar. Okay, you're ready, but they're not. I mean, they have the basic foundation of what they need. They know about the law generally. Talk about what your goal is of the mentor program. And, when you look back at the end of your tenureship and you say, that was a very successful program, we rolled it out the way I wanted to. What are the things in that mentorship program that you really want to achieve? Because it's a huge undertaking, but it's important.
Yeah, it's a big undertaking. I guess to frame it, and you kind of already started to, Greta, is every major trade or profession has an internship, an apprenticeship, something. Medicine, plumbing, you name it, but not the law.
Yeah.
When you graduate law school, and now you're a brand new lawyer, sometimes without much experience at all, if any. And that's really a problem, especially if you're not working somewhere else, if you're on your own.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking for in this mentorship program, voluntary mentorship programs usually fail to some degree. They fail on the mentee side because some mentees like, I don't want to talk to this person all the time. Just give me a case. Give me something I can use.
Yeah.
And the mentors, the more experienced or older lawyers, tell war stories. Well, in my day, I walked, uphill for 5 miles and in the snow. And no one wants to hear that. So
no.
We're building this program based on a functional curriculum, planks of ethics and professionalism, substantive law, the career trajectory, your life path. Who's telling these newer lawyers to get involved with their chamber, the local synagogue or church,
yes,
or local voluntary bar? That type of advice is invaluable. Ultimately, this mentorship program will succeed because there will be a relationship between the mentor and the mentee.
Yes.
It's going to take a lot of time making the appropriate matches. It's not going to be just random. People will be able to stress their priorities of geography, or practice area, or other considerations. But the goal is, the one-year mentorship program is over, and then we'll start again with a new group, but the mentor-mentee will continue to stay in touch and have made a meaningful connection. And I think that's what's going to happen.
I love that. And, being from the training side of the world, it's really interesting that you brought that up because not everybody realizes, when you talk about a mentor or a trainer, in my world, you get somebody who's owned a business or who's been, on the sales or networking side, and they say, this is what you do because this is what I did. I mean, you made that point. I think people don't understand there really needs to be a process of steps along the way that you're helping them understand. This is what I recommend that you do. Here's why. Here's the outcome you're looking for. And when you come back to me, let's talk about that. What was the good, bad, and the ugly? Did it work? Did you like it? I think there's so many. I think you're absolutely right, because when you think about a mentorship, no wonder the mentees and the mentors get kind of, sometimes a mentor in any industry can get very jaded. I just want to show you how wonderful what I did to be successful. That doesn't really help a mentee, and no wonder they get kind of distracted. And, that makes sense. So putting something together that has some pieces in it with some leeway of, having their own relationship, I think that's really, really important. And I think that'll make it successful. Fantastic.
Trying to build it to last.
Yeah.
And it's going to be an app. There will be an app that is also part of it. I remember telling this is not my idea. This is my co-chair's. That should be an app. And I said, an app? I don't like downloading apps. And they're like, well, Gary, remember, you're not the target audience. The real target audience is the newer lawyers.
It's true.
And, we're going to offer mentors CLE credits and other incentives to participate, so long as they meet communications and reporting requirements. So we think that will be good. But we need to make sure that these newer lawyers participate and they know what they're getting into. There'll be a form for the mentor and the mentee as to expectations. And I think it's going to work out pretty well.
I love it. I love it. So Gary, before we head out, I want to do a takeaway, but I want to do a two-part takeaway. One, I want you to talk about, if you're talking to young lawyers that recently graduated, and what's the one thing that you say, here's the one thing you have to make sure that you learn or if you were to just zero it down to one thing. And then the other part of that is people that, the average person is, like you said, they're afraid to hire a lawyer. They're so expensive. They're going to, I don't need them. It says that, like you said, in the real estate situation, well, I have a title person, I have this. And those are all wonderful people too, and they're important, but they play a different role. So in those takeaways, those two things, give us kind of a synopsis of those two pieces of what people really should know.
So as to the first part, what I tell new lawyers, and I talk to newer lawyers a lot, and I really enjoy that. And I am reminded of the fact that, especially right now, as I look at myself, I'm no longer a newer lawyer by any definition. It's 30 plus years ago when I was sworn in, I had very dark hair. The word that I was told then by family and other mentors is it's about your reputation. That's it. That is the bottom line. And you have your whole career to build it up, and one bad decision to give it away. And everything that you do in your career should always be about your reputation and being your best self. There's a tendency, especially with lack of mentorship, we see email wars, right? So someone sends a mean email. What are you going to do? I'm going to send a meaner email. I'm going to show him or her that I'm a good lawyer because I can write a meaner email. And, you don't want to do that. So I always tell newer lawyers, always take the high road. If your case is correct and you have a position based on the law, based on the facts of the case, that's all that matters. And don't let someone pull you into their acid bath, because then they win. And how you deal with everyone. Part of a spiel that I use when I speak to groups of newer lawyers when they're sworn in, and I said this last week, is when you especially are feeling challenged in your communications, and you're in court or you're on the phone, you're sending an email, that your thought process should be that if someone sees you and how you communicate, be it, and it's someone who you care about, a parent, a spouse, a child, they would say you handled it the right way, and they wouldn't be ashamed of you or embarrassed of how you conducted yourself. So I'm not saying always think that your parents are looking over your shoulder. I'm just saying think about always being
your best. Not a bad thought, though. Not a bad thought.
If you always are your best self, you'll always have your reputation. And I've been doing this for a while, Brett, and I have seen people over the years through any number of reasons, anger, lack of impatience, communicate in such a way, and then this becomes a pattern. And if you have the right case, that's all that matters. Sending an email, angry or not, isn't going to decide the outcome of the case. Your obligation is to the client, if it's litigation or transactional, and move that forward. Don't get involved in any type of mean email fight or other communication. Always carry yourself as well as you can. And if that's your reputation, that you are nice and ethical, that will always serve you and your clients well.
It will. It absolutely will. And then for the average Joe who doesn't think they need an attorney, and in some cases they really do, what are some of the takeaways? What do they do? How do they know?
So, what's happened is people aren't hiring lawyers as much because they think they can't afford it. And that's not necessarily the case at all. There are certainly smaller firms and newer lawyers that are definitely affordable. But what the data shows is that people increasingly think these are life problems and not legal problems. I have a landlord problem. I have a problem with my boss. No, you have an eviction matter. No, you have a wrongful termination matter. And so the big focus of the public education campaign that we'll be doing, called Life's Legal Moments, is to explain that sometimes you really do need a lawyer on things that affect you and your family. So buying or selling a home, a will, or, we're not going to get into complex areas of the law. We're talking about things that affect everyday people.
Yeah.
And to let them know that if you go without representation in this matter, it might be a problem. And of course, buying and selling a home is the big one. And not having a will, a properly executed will.
Yes.
I and many lawyers I know get a call saying, yeah, my mom died and she never did a will. My dad died and he did an Office Depot will, and they say it's not right. And so in order to save $500 or $1,000, you've cost yourself or your family thousands and thousands and possibly significantly more.
Yeah.
So I guess the biggest takeaway is if you have something that looks like it might be a legal matter, you should probably try to talk to a lawyer, and best to try to get to a lawyer from a recommendation.
Yeah.
You can Google a lawyer and get, a million results, right?
Yes.
How do you know who that lawyer is and what his or her reputation is? Yeah. So I always tell people, if you think you might have a legal issue, then you should probably try to talk to a lawyer before proceeding and get to that lawyer by asking for a couple recommendations.
I love that. That's great advice. And I love Life's Legal Matters. What a great, catchy name. I mean, it really is. And it is about life's legal matters. It's not things that you think about that, I don't need a lawyer. I love that. It's really great. Gary, thank you so much about spending time with me. I know you're crazy busy right now, and it's such an important thing, and I can't wait for people to hear this. Thank you again, and hang in there with me for a minute.
Greta, thank you. Oh, I'm out. Thank you.